I work in no hurry. Veyron and Sokka team up, even at a disadvantage, to fight against Malcolm. In the meantime, Zonda was not idle either. That's a really troublesome move. Demon Chi, no, humans are supposed to use fighting Chi. In order to continuously emit the wavelengths of scrambled mana, the energy was left inside the enemy. What a horrible move. If it's a move like this, it might work on us spiritual beings too. A diagnosis like this is being given to Gable. This diagnosis is correct. This is the same kind of power as Damruda's spiral immersion breaking, which smashes the condensed fighting chi into the opponent's interior for destruction. This is the ultimate meaning of the Maizushin life stream, the chi fighting method, which is why it is called the Sword of Exorcism. It is this reason that the recovery potions that heal on a mana-based basis cannot heal this damage. Still, Zonda had a way to heal. Deftly manipulating the demon element, adjusting the messy breath and neutralizing the fighting breath that Malcolm had fought in, allowing Gable's body to resume normal breath flow. And Gable wasn't just quietly waiting to recover. A strong desire for greater healing power. His desire to do so was stimulating Gable to discover new powers. But the plan couldn't keep up with the changes, and Malcolm lifted the frame. Oops, time's up. I've received the order to return, so let's save the victory for later. After saying this, Malcolm left directly by transfer regardless of the situation. Ben is in a bitter battle with Footman. It's a little light to say it's a bit of a fight. He also has the strength of the immortal class and is still confident in his own strength. But Footman's amount of mojo easily overrides Ben. Ben's armor and battle spear were legendary, improving his combat abilities, but even that was still not enough to win. The reason why the fight lasted was because Footman lost his sanity. And thanks to Phobio's assistance. Black Leopard Fang Phobio, come and help us. The man who had barged in so loudly was strange to Ben at first, but he immediately remembered who this man was. Black Leopard Fang is of the three-beast warrior of King Carrion. Is it true, Carrion has now abdicated to the demon lord Milim, who is also allied with His Majesty Rimuru? Since he wasn't the enemy, Ben welcomed help. Thank you. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed on my own. I guess so. I don't think I could do it on my own, to be honest. Phobio, who has re-examined his own attitude and reflected on it, is able to assess his own strength calmly, and he realizes by instinct that he cannot beat Footman even if he does his best to bestialize him. That's why Phobio shed his pride and chose to fight alongside Ben. Footman, though strong, has become monotonous in his attacking style due to a loss of sanity. Both Ben and Phobio were covered in bruises and were just barely holding their own now. Even if they could not expect victory, the word retreat did not exist in their minds. 4. The companions were engaged in a dead heat on the side. The other clown, Tyr, is dealing with Henrietta, the head of the Dark Ministry of the armed nation of Dworgen, and Gobia and the others who are participating in the war. These men intend to capture Tyr with a few elites. It's just that Tyr's look was really strange. Really, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it either, but it's an order, so try your best not be killed, so you have to find a way to stop me. Quite serious when it comes to fighting, with words like that coming out of her mouth. In fact, Tyr, even though she was ordered to fight by Cagali, still had her own free will, and even though the order could not be disobeyed, she could still understand that Cagali was in a state of being manipulated. In other words, she herself had no intention of fighting the current situation and did not want to. So Tyr is trying as hard as she can not to make a real effort to participate in the battle without disobeying orders, and then also makes a request to ask her own enemy, Henrietta, to stop her. In response to Tyr's expectations, Henrietta and the others began to execute capture battles, why the power gap was difficult to fill and had failed to bear fruit until now. I'm sorry about that guy over there, too. I used you before, but I won't lie to you again. Hearing Tyr's words, Phobio felt indignant. The reason for removing Footman's sanity was to avoid hurting them, something Phobio and Ben quickly picked up on. The fact that Footman is showing the same level of aura as Phobio's esteemed carrion shows he is really not an opponent that Phobio can beat in a normal challenge. Therefore, Phobio was thankful to Tear for the time being. But shut up. Don't remind me of my dark history. Needless to say, I'm grateful for letting this guy go on a rampage. Yeah. You're all weak, and if Footman had used his skills properly, you'd all be dead by now. In response to Phobio's retort, Tear innocently spat out a tirade. Tear didn't mean any harm and was telling the truth, but because of that it was even more of a fire, but the most that could be done now was to complain about it a bit. What an arrogant brat. That's enough. Don't talk. That said, can't you just make an effort to put more water in? Mentally remembering it for me afterwards, Ben and Phobio sighed. The dire situation continues. Gobia actually wanted to rush through this place well to help the rest of the battle, mainly because she thought her opponent on this side was the best to deal with. But reality is not that simple. Tear was not hostile, but could not disobey. It is therefore by no means wrong for Gobia to make a judgment to make a capture. The reason why the battle could not go smoothly was simply because Tear and Footman were too strong. Footman can break through steel with ease, the usual attacks don't work and it's very difficult to knock him out. It took Ben and Phobio, two strong men together, to slow him down. On the other side, Tear, who was confident in her speed, couldn't catch up with Henrietta, and Gobia couldn't even get close enough to touch. This side was ready to cast the net, but nothing seemed to work out alive. It would have been smoother if Soka and the others had come to execute it, but there was no time for that right now when they were fighting with Malcolm. All of this has led to a deteriorating war situation. Gobia grasped the battle based on Moss intelligence. Veyron and Zonda seem to have gone forward to rescue Gable, only it seems to be in a scorched state again, but out of harm's way. The worst is Kondo. Hakuru couldn't fight, and King Gazelle was defeated. Ajira and Esprit seem to have passed, but facing Kondo, he doesn't even know if he can buy time. At worst, I'm the one who's going to fight. Moss said. Moss's duty is to grasp the battlefield in place of Benimaru, and based on Moss intelligence, Gobia makes a combat case. Gobia was now giving clear instructions while responding to Tear. It was also possible to do this because of the presence of Moss support, and if Moss had joined the battle lines might have collapsed in one breath. The worst-case scenario would be to ask you to help in the end. Can you make a difference? I'll do my best. It felt like Moss couldn't win either, and Gobia felt so melancholy. Moss is a self-assured man and gets along with all but a specific character, led by Testarossa, with an air of arrogance. And Moss, who is full of confidence, just says that the best he can do is try with such uncertainty-filled words. It is enough to show just how dangerous an opponent Kondo is. It would be difficult to stop Kondo. It will take time for Gable to return to the front lines. Gobia and the others are going to capture Footman and Tear for who knows how much longer. At this rate, it would be impossible to stop Kagali's ritual. And then there's Jadora, who is now in the middle of a war of words with Veilgrind, and if Veilgrind enters the fray, it's basically a lost battle. Oops. Just how much we normally depend on Lord Raimuru and Lord Benimaru is really fully understood. Gobia is in a state of introspection, and only now does she realize that she is a bit of an afterthought. It is for this reason that one must not give up. It's not over. The reason why Lord Veilgrind didn't act was because the demons were working on it. The gap in strength was clearly evident, yet it remained tenacious. Let's start with the discouragement. This kind of thing is never allowed. Gobia thought of the trio of self-respecting, arrogant trio of demonesses. They have never been defeated, and even though they are new to this world, they sit at the top of the hierarchy as the 12 patrons. They are more powerful than Gobia could have ever imagined, yet still leave one despairing in the face of Veilgrind. It's good enough that the fight is still going on right now. Can't lose, thought Gobia. Cheering herself up once more, she continued the Tear capture battle. It is unclear whether Gobia is a male or female because both pronouns are being used randomly. I went with female because it seemed to be used more often. In front of Kondo stood a man. Samurai-like dress for Ajira. Kill him, Ajira. I won't get in your way. Esprit shouted, then began to treat Gazelle and Hakuru. Ajira sighed and shook her head. Esprit has always been this way. The benefits are always taken away from her. To put it bluntly, Esprit just saw right now that she couldn't beat Kondo and took the initiative to disengage from the fight. Esprit is a shrewd demoness. It was a common occurrence these days, and Ajira didn't care, raising her knife towards Kondo. After 300 years of being defeated without a single sword, Kondo, who had defeated 2 swordsmen, Hakuru and Gazelle, in succession, was feeling the blood in his body tumbling. Is your name Kondo? Your swordsmanship is fascinating. I'm a swordsman by trade, so I'll have to fight you. You can't beat Kondo if you let go of the restrictions. Ajira saw it coming. It was because Kondo responded to the win with his sword that Hakuru managed to give that counter-strike. If it wasn't for that, even if Gazelle and Hakuru had launched the challenge together, it was estimated that they wouldn't have been able to inflict any damage on Kondo and would have been repelled by Kondo soon. It was also based on this idea that Ajira proposed this. The offer was just a try, but Ajira believed that Kondo would agree, on the grounds that for some reason Kondo's sword skills felt nostalgic. Lord Ajira, is it true that Lord Ajira is good at swordsmanship too? Before Kondo could respond, Hakuru interjected first. What does that mean? Well, no, actually, Lord Ajira and someone I knew always felt some resemblance. Facing Ajira with a face of astonishment, Hakuru looked a bit hesitant. In fact, Hakuru's grandfather and Ajira could almost be said to look exactly alike. It's not just the look, the height and the feel, but also the unmistakable manner in which they speak and act. Is that so? However, it is a pity that it is someone else. I have no memory of meeting you in this world, where I was born 300 years ago. I'm not sure if I'm good at swordsmanship, but I've learned to fight with this sword all my life. After saying that, Ajira gave a gentle smile. For Ajira, the sword is everything. Yeah, oops, that's some boring stuff. Hakuru put away his various thoughts and retreated. Could Ajira be the reincarnation of his grandfather? There is some doubt, but no evidence. What's more, even if Ajira was Akari Byakuya, it wouldn't be a reason for Kondo to take a little care of him. Ajira seems to be the reincarnation of Akari Byakuya, and might consider himself male, but is for some reason portrayed as a female demon, hence the changing pronouns. The grandfather, who hadn't won once, was nothing more than a human being in the end, and no matter how Ajira answered, it wouldn't be the main reason to change things here. In order to win this battle, one must be stronger than Kondo. Is it possible that Hakuru-san knows someone who? Well, it's my grandfather. Gazelle asked in a small voice, and Hakuru answered in a small voice. Esprit joins in on the duo's whisper. By the way, did Hakuru's grandfather pass away in 300 years? Yes. Then it's possible that he was reincarnated as a demon from the beginning with a sword. Moreover, the souls of the martial arts will gather around Carrera-sama, so there's nothing strange about it. I see. In that case, maybe he'll know something that even Sir Hakuru doesn't know. It's hard to say. I've done the best I can, and in the swordsmanship my grandfather showed me, he also said that the 8 flower is the strongest mystery. Like that, a few people got chatty. Hakuru and others have exhausted all their efforts and still lost the battle, so they looked away and became a kind of watching the victory and defeat. Also, although a bit anachronistic, Hakuru cared a lot about Ajira's origins, and Gazelle was interested in Hakuru's master. I'm so thorough in my work, 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 I'm so thorough in my work. This state of affairs made Ajira sigh in disbelief. Kondo, on one side, also didn't come at all to interfere with the enemy's conversation, just leisurely observing Ajira's stance. It was Kondo's duty to exclude those who wanted to interfere with Kagali's ritual, and by the way, to identify some strongmen who could come in handy, not to cut down the enemy to death. So, without panic, he responded Ajira. It was because it was too dangerous to let it go. If a saint who is evenly matched with himself learns the sword skills that Hakuru has entrusted to him, there is no guarantee that he will win, so Kondo chooses to win, which means that his priority is to finish the job. For an opponent of Ajira's apparently lower level than his own, he didn't see a problem in playing a little bit. It would have been rare for Kondo to make such a judgment. Workaholics who have always believed in rationalism are extremely annoyed by doing useless work. Kondo's only weakness is his pride in his genre. He's still not mature enough to let go of the affair. Even while doing introspection, one still can't contain one's curiosity. All right, let's do a couple of things with him. Kondo was about to talk to the other guy, but he wasn't too stupid to forget to look around. On the edge of the line of sight, Veilgrind was spotted in action. Kagali's forbidden spell, Demon Death Aborigine, isn't done yet, but it looks like things have changed. Sadly, it looked like the time had come and Kondo was ready to make his move. I'm sorry, but I'd like to go through with you, but work comes first. After speaking to Ajira, he stowed his saber. It was an attitude that was completely contemptuous of Ajira, only, even knowing that it was, Ajira couldn't stop Kondo. Watching Kondo's departing figure, he still felt cold and sweaty. Looks like you got yourself a life. Reluctantly, he muttered. Ghidorah is on his own with Veilgrind as his opponent. That being said, it's not as if they are fighting. If that was the case, even the most advanced technology crystallized Floor Guardian Colossus statue would be shattered with a single blow. Ghidorah knew her weight and wouldn't make such a foolish move. Just purely following his own curiosity and asking questions of Veilgrind. I didn't know that Her Excellency, Marshal, was Lord Veldorah's sister, Lord Veilgrind, the Scorched Dragon. A word of courtesy first. One side draws Veilgrind's attention while advancing the conversation. It's only recently that you've seen my face, so it's only natural that you didn't know. Getting an answer is luck at the end of the day. Veilgrind had thus been making Ghidorah talking objects. Buying time by talking is Ghidorah's strategy of making the most of it. The strategy worked and Ghidorah is still alive to this day. Only, there was something in Veilgrind's mind. I see. That is to say, Lord Veilgrind, who has always supported His Majesty Rudra and played the role of a marshal for generations, I admire so much. After all, it's not so hard to act when you haven't spoken for hundreds of years. Veilgrind replied in a rather polite tone, but it looked as if she was tired, and now she was being embarrassed by Ghidorah's incessant questions. That's why I couldn't resist saying something that sounded like a complaint. You've got a lot of nerves, by the way. You're allowed to ask questions because Rudra likes you. I didn't expect you to keep asking so many questions. I'm so flattered. I'm not flattering you. Veilgrind looked like she couldn't stand it. To end Ghidorah, it was easy for Veilgrind, only now that 4 other bodies had been divided, it was inevitable that another one would have to be divided in order to deal with Ghidorah. As long as he doesn't interfere with the ritual, that's fine, so just deal with Ghidorah. In contrast to Veilgrind, who was troubled by making the wrong choice, Ghidorah continued to ask questions with aplomb. On the other hand, there is one thing that is of great interest. Why did Lord Damrada prevent me from communicating information to His Majesty? As long as Lord Raimuru's information on their battle strength is properly conveyed, won't the Imperial Army's casualties be reduced? Who knows? As you've noticed, the Imperial Army doesn't matter to us at all, it's just a war to awaken the strong. Even so, wouldn't it be better to hear from me about the situation? What pestering! Maybe you're trying to say that Damrada has betrayed, but he has his own problems. It's true. What does this have to do with a kid named Masayuki? I don't know. Why do I need to know what's going on in Damrada, and who is that Masayuki? Huh? Veilgrind's reaction puzzled Ghidorah. According to Jidora's preconceived notions, this Masayuki should be the key. Well, then, don't you know that hero is lucky? In the face of Jidora's scowling questioning, Veilgrind replied coldly. I don't know, or is that guy strong? To ask if it's strong or not, the answer would have to be no. Jidora didn't hate Masayuki, he rather liked him, and that was because Jidora knew he was definitely not strong. Hearing Jidora's reply, Veilgrind grimaced. Kondo is only interested in people who are about to be awakened. Besides, if calling yourself a hero attracts karmic circles, then the monsters will reach out and kill him anyway, right? I see, thought Jidora. Yuki used Masayuki to test the reaction of Demon Lord Rimuru, and doing so was no doubt a suggestion from Damrada. In other words, the upper echelons of the Empire should be aware of Masayuki's business. But Veilgrind said she didn't know. Indeed, it's not unreasonable to say that he's ignored because he doesn't count as strong. At least for Kondo, Masayuki should be of little use, and with the intention of budding the unstable elements, plus the fact that Masayuki looks exactly like Emperor Rudra, it's not surprising that even Kondo would want to take Masayuki out. What Kondo's actions are well understood, but what cannot be understood is Damrada's actions. But Lord Damrada sent 2 single-digit guards to protect the young man, Masayuki. This is to infiltrate the land of the monsters, right? Well, that's right, but Jidora was anxious in her heart, but afraid to speak too dryly. It all sounded like it made sense, but it always felt like there was some sense of dissonance, that Jidora, who had already betrayed the Empire, was annoyed from the standpoint that something that didn't need to be annoying was annoying him. Couldn't she listen more seriously? Jidora really wanted to yell at Veilgrind. You seem very upset. No. Why was it that the expressions were invisible, but the moods of this side could be seen? Jidora was trying desperately to calm his shaken heart. At this point, Jidora suddenly found out why he felt at odds with Veilgrind's words. Your Excellency, Damrada, is he actually a traitor? Jidora said offhandedly. Cut the crap. You're not the one who betrayed me. You are right. But Jidora was not discouraged. Maximize the nerve of living up to the big strips and offer an opinion on Veilgrind. Let's say that's the case. The young man, fortunately, looks exactly like His Majesty Rudra. What do you think about that? That's right, the sense of dissonance came from the information about Masayuki. Be it strong or weak, the Empire does take that very seriously. However, Masayuki had a more important element than that, which was the exact resemblance to Emperor Rudra, the ruler. If this is ignored, the conversation cannot continue. It was possible that Kondo knew about it, but Bonnie and Ju should have been unaware of it. Damrada, who was a friend of Rudra, knew about it. But why does he want to protect Masayuki? It was this incomprehensibility that amazed Jidora. What did you say? That is to say, His Majesty Rudra and Masayuki the hero look exactly alike. Why would this information? Jidora was about to clarify when he suddenly shut his mouth with an iron face. Seeing Veilgrind's expression, Jidora thought to himself with trepidation, this old man, I guess I'm going to die. And suddenly began to regret being too overwhelmed. But Veilgrind had completely cast Jidora aside and gotten herself into thinking. It was hard to imagine Kondo not knowing about this information, but not reporting it, leaving her somewhat upset. The more important issue is Damrada. Not sure what he was thinking, there was no way to take Jidora's words for granted now, and, to what extent is it similar? To say they look like Rudra? It is necessary to confirm once. The total annihilation of the attacking Imperial army was somewhat wrongly predicted, but it was still assumed that everything was working as planned. By all accounts, but this supposedly insignificant piece of information made Veilgrind feel very angry. Jidora, thank you for the useful information. I'll let you off the hook for this information, okay? Want to try to challenge me with that toy of yours? Veilgrind hadn't intended to kill Jidora in the first place, and didn't look at Ghidorah as she is now, as he's actually one of the few friends Rudra can trust. Furthermore, while it is true that Ghidorah betrayed the Empire, there was no betrayal of Rudra, as judged by Veilgrind. To Veilgrind, this thing called the Empire meant little, so Ghidorah's betrayal was still within tolerable bounds. In this respect, Veilgrind thinks a little differently than people do, not something Ghidorah could have guessed, so Ghidorah thought that one could only accept Veilgrind's proposal. It's because they can't win that they choose to fight for time, and if it turns into a real fight, it's basically the same as a battle to the death. To put it bluntly, it didn't take a second for Ghidorah to be done. So Ghidorah was also a no-brainer. Wahahahaha, you're such a joker. I'm no match for you. The control of the attitude change was important, and Ghidorah chose to smile and muddle through. This answer, which seems to be negative, neither says yes or no, and leaves the judgment to the other party, so as not to worry about being blamed for fleeing from the Rimuru side, the perfect way to deal with the world. Ghidorah has subtly gone to the extreme in this regard. While Veilgrind understood this cunning of Ghidorah, she also just thought he was an interesting man. With a sigh and a Ghidorah, she let him go. And, luckily for Ghidorah, the situation has changed. The other body who fought with Veldora was starting to get serious, and it was now necessary to leave this venue. Oh yeah? If you change your mind, tell me about it and I'll be your opponent. But until then, try to survive this war. Hey? I've got things to do now, and I'll leave that to other pawns. You seem to be hated by the military. Work hard to become a saint. What the hell is going on? Ignoring the questioning Ghidorah, Veilgrind floated into the air. Interrupting the magic would slow down the progress of the ritual considerably, but there was nothing that could be done. Ghidorah, who had been left there dazed, was looking up at Veilgrind, confused by the change in circumstances and was at a loss as to what to do. On the battlefield, not even for a moment can one slack off, and as if to prove it, before Ghidorah could figure it out, Veilgrind revealed the meaning of the words, time, space, connection. It's a completely breathless, out-of-touch glimpse of reality. Floating in the air, Veilgrind let out a roar, space twisted dramatically, and then out of that twisted space emerged countless flying airships. Is that the flying ship regiment responsible for transporting the Warcraft Legion? Difficult, could it be, connecting the spaces? No way. I don't see how far it is from there to here. No, it's not that. Ghidorah was confused. That's because what's happening right in front of him is just so incredible. The flying fleet, which was originally scheduled to launch an attack from the northern part of the Kingdom of Ingratia, had been called here in defiance of time and space. It should have taken more than 3 days according to Rimuru's calculations, and Ghidorah would have thought it impossible to summon it. There is a great danger of transferring through magic. One messed up can kill soldiers. It takes a lot of magic to avoid that, and spells can become very complicated. No, Lord Rimuru's words can do it. However, pulling people with other coordinates over will increase the difficulty by several levels. This kind of thing should be impossible to do. It's just so beyond common sense. Ghidorah's insights are correct, but one cannot agree that this is reality. Just as Ghidorah was in chaos, there were others who felt the same way he did. The flying regiment that was marching towards the northern part of the Kingdom of Ingratia was enjoying its air travel with grace. Unlike the dangerous sea route, the air is safe, though not zero, but there are few magical things that can fly over great heights. The person most responsible for commanding the 300 flying airships was Samuel. Samuel's mission was to transport friendly troops to the central continent along with the 30,000 Warcraft Legion led by Grand Admiral Gladim and his partners. It's a comfortable life because they don't have to fight. But this extraordinarily luxurious flagship aboard which Samuel is aboard has a section wrapped in a different atmosphere. Very noble men were inspecting. He heard that was the case, but who exactly was in there, Samuel was not heard. The man inside was a surprise intruder, maybe even the Kalgoorlie army chief didn't know. Having said that, Samuel didn't care. Ha ha ha, don't know any better. Minding your own business will only shorten your life. Let go completely and focus on your work. That's why he was able to spend a relaxed period of time, but then came a sudden emergency report. Excuse me. The general officer in charge of the order came in as if he had an urgent matter and did not give it to the soldiers, but came himself, which seemed to be a very important report. Samuel asked with a soft smile. What's wrong? Is it your country? In fact, the report of the Kalgoorlie army chief suffering a miserable defeat had been received, with the ground battle losing most of its strength, but it had little to do with Samuel, and the battle that had already begun was not going to stop until an abort order was given. With more than a few days to go until the battlefield, it would be useless for Samuel to panic, but it would be better to hope that the abort order would come soon. The soldiers didn't know about it yet, and if it leaked out it would affect morale, which would lead to a decrease in combat success, and it was indisputable that Samuel would want to regroup. Some dismissed this as weakness, but it was something Samuel couldn't decide alone. The friendly general, chief of the Glardim army, was of this type, the type that Samuel was not very good at. So Samuel prayed that the report was an order to abort. But the truth is completely beyond Samuel's imagination. Your Excellency, Marshal, is coming out. What? What? Samuel couldn't help but yelp. Not even realizing that he was sitting on the boat, Samuel was no ordinary surprise. A very noble man is His Excellency the Marshal. How is that possible, this battle, is it that important? Of course, it's important. It's just that, with one of the 3 legions out, there should be no need for the Marshal to make another appearance. No, the first thing to think about than this is how to deal with the Marshal. All hands, on your feet. Go forth and salute. Samuel immediately stood up to give the order. The atmosphere of slack was completely blown away and a sense of tension filled the bridge. The door opened as all stood and saluted. On display was a stunning beauty, Veelgrind. The people on the bridge were stunned beyond words by the beauty of Veelgrind. The Marshal, who had never revealed his true self all this time, now stood before him. Before the head could react to that fact, it was first charmed by the beauty of Veelgrind. Veelgrind, on the other hand, took it for granted. Little fools, stop fidgeting and get back to work. And gently pointed out. However, one can't be careless. Veelgrind was just being more rational, and she was well aware that the flagship could be ruined if it got ugly here. Since Emperor Rudra was also aboard this ship, which was the result of Veelgrind's concerns, these people present should be considered lucky. Get back in position. All hands, back to work. Following Samuel's instructions, the sergeants went back to work. And just like that, the elegant ship trip was over. What happened next was even more of a continuous surprise to Samuel. For the first time, Your Excellency. My name is Samuel. I hope you remember me. Yeah, I'll think about it if you survive. It is a great honor. I'll remember your golden words and make every effort. As much as I'd like to encourage you, there's no time for that, so get to the subject quickly. Veelgrind coped with Samuel's flattery and took her seat in the captain's chair. Towards Samuel, who had stepped aside in a panic, gave the order. It's a pain in the ass to repeat it. Get me the Glardim commander. Yes. Samuel gave a look, and the sergeant who had taken his meaning contacted the ship that Glardim was aboard. Not a moment later, Glardim appeared in the picture. She's more beautiful than I thought. Glardim saw Veelgrind and felt it would be easy to subdue her, so there was some doubt in his mind. Why is it that such a woman is considered stronger than me? Not a bit of extra fat or muscle, and a body that looks slim and soft, no matter how it looks, seems like nothing to do with being strong. There are ideas that it's the magic and fighting chi that are important, but it also takes strong flesh to get those things to circle back properly. Just like me, Glardim boasted of his flesh, and so it was even more so that Veelgrind looked weak. It's really just muscle brain functioning. Veelgrind, on the other hand, doesn't think much of Gladim. The strength is real, she just wants to make full use of him as a pawn who can play. Veelgrind simply returned the words, "No need to be polite," and then blandly began to give orders, looking at that attitude, simply not taking Gladim at all. From now on, ongoing combat missions are abandoned. The new mission is to go ahead and suppress the armed state of Dworgen. Anything to ask? Samuel and Gladim thought to themselves, is it finally here? They also estimated that the country should be in a state of unprecedented chaos. Now that the defeat has been suffered, it is necessary to immediately re-establish the battle, since the battle is being fought head-on with the three sides at the same time, so that the judgment now made takes on extra significance. All it takes is one ring to fail, and it will lead to a domain-wide collapse. However, after a few days, the kingdom of Ingratia was so close that it received an order to abort, and it was only natural that the two would froze. Understood. Then return immediately at maximum speed. Since it was His Excellency's order, Gladim must have fought with his life to complete it. But you're too late to judge, and you'll be held responsible for the failure of the operation. Samuel was nervous to take orders, and Gladim was as arrogant as ever. Gladim, aboard a different warship, could not feel the dominance of Veelgrind through the frame. Seeing Gladim like this, Samuel had been nervous. Don't get me involved. The heart prayed. But Veelgrind was completely indifferent. Looks like you've got the wrong idea. Showing a smile spoke to the two. Misunderstanding, huh? What misunderstanding? Are you trying to say you're not wrong? Yes, Veelgrind nodded and then began to explain. First of all, Samuel, from here to your destination I will lead you, and after that I will continue to give you instructions, so be prepared. Catch, Gladim. We didn't lose the battle, it was all in line with the original plan. What a stupid thing to say. It's too late to think that shirking responsibility will work. What did you say, stupid? Veelgrind narrowed his eyes in displeasure and glared at Gladim. Inwardly, she wondered what to do about it while thinking what a pain in the ass. Then the conclusion was reached that leave it alone. Gladim does come on strong, but it's nothing against Veelgrind. It's easy to break him down, but to do so would be a bit too wasteful. Most importantly, there's no time. It is this that has been extremely fortunate for Gladim. Forget it. If you survive, we'll talk about it later. Talk about what? Listen, from now on, we're going to perform the space-time connection and be ready to move immediately. After that, I'll focus on Veldora, and the kid became more difficult to deal with than one might think, a happy miscalculation, but a bit tricky indeed. Therefore, you are going to suppress the battlefield in my place, and it has been confirmed that there are some people worth waiting for, so as to capture them alive as much as possible. Do you understand? Ignoring Gladim, who still wanted to continue complaining, Veelgrind got straight to the point. Veelgrind, who had finished speaking, turned her back on the duo as they prepared to walk to the outer deck of the ship, hitching his hand on the reinforced door. Your Excellency, Marshal, what are you doing? It's dangerous. Please come back quickly. What? I told you. If we don't go outside, we won't be able to use the space-time connection. Glancing at Samuel like a fool, he pushed open the door without hesitation, and then Veelgrind flew off into the air just like that. Why so capricious? Want to reel us in? Samuel felt the terror. It is an incredibly dangerous act to open the bridge door in high altitude and high-speed flight, or else everyone in the ship will be sucked out because of the air pressure difference. The cold temperatures will rob him of his strength and the lack of oxygen will lead to death. The same goes for the magical envoys in the ministry. Samuel anxiously tried to hurry and close the door. But all his worries were unfounded. Veelgrind's use of space domination has long since prevented its effects on the ship. Before Samuel could be surprised, the greatest surprise came at Samuel, no, at all the generals. Just floating up to the sky is Veelgrind. And then the next moment. time, space, connection. Ahead of Veelgrind, a huge spatial distortion appeared. How could? Hard, unbelievable. Acknowledgement of spatial vibration. The tremendous, due to the really overpowering shaking of the magical essence, seems to be having an effect on spacetime. No, didn't, that's what Her Excellency the Marshal did. It really is, how? It is, after all, a phenomenon that is unimaginable and beyond human intelligence. There's no way to understand what's going on, there's no way anyone can do something like that. Everyone's running from reality, however, Samuel perceived. The boy? Her Excellency, Marshal, called Veldora the boy? There are few conceivable existences that would call Veldora that. Could it be? Could the Marshal's true face be? Dare not speak out, Imperial Guardian Dragon. Having always thought she was only guarding the Empire on a whim, Samuel found out that the truth was different. As if to affirm Samuel's preconceptions, the floating Veelgrind smiled deeply. All right, go work for me. It was a voice that would not allow disobedience. Not only Samuel, but Gladim as well, as if invited by the sweet sound, reversed the airship and headed for the time rift. The battlefield changed dramatically as a result of Veelgrind's actions. And that's true for the demoness trio that continually fights. In earnest, Veelgrind showed more than her imagination. Completely unbroken, relying on her overwhelmingly powerful strength to play with Testarossa and others, not a single bit of her body was allowed to touch, not a bit careless, not a bit drained. Even a mere blow of magic had an incredibly high power. Veelgrind brought out all her strength to carry out a sustained attack, trying to destroy the demoness trio. Like a mad warrior who has lost her sanity. She just didn't turn into her dragon form, but there was no doubt that Veelgrind was serious. However, Testarossa and the others are still alive. If it was before Rimuru gave them names, they would have lost flesh and been forced to return to the demon world. The bodies made by Rimuru were further strengthened by the magic of the primordial. Thanks to this, they were barely able to withstand the tyranny of Veelgrind. It's amazing. I thought it would end sooner than I thought. It's more resistant than I thought, and I'm used to close combat. These are the sincere words of Veelgrind. I didn't expect to use up so much time even though I was using my full strength. We will not be defeated. If we make such a disgraceful spectacle, we will be ridiculed by Diablo. That is more humiliating than death. I feel the same way, that guy. He's got a dark side. Oi, it feels like Diablo would not want to be told that by you. But I agree about the dark side. They were lying on the ground, scaly and bruised, but the three's eyes were still full of energy. Not only that, but they also showed a fearless smile. It is not defeat as long as one does not concede defeat, and that unyielding attitude is better than eloquence. Oops, that's a lot of trouble. Veelgrind was just as confused, but the battle was irreversible. The tricky demon Lord Rimuru and his subordinates were imprisoned in the fantasy fortress, and they managed to lure Veldora out of the labyrinth. After that it was just a matter of dominating Veldora as planned. Veelgrind, who had taken the demoness trio's wisecracks to heart, had her expression twisted at the words of Testarossa, who stood up. It took a lot of time, but I have a good grasp of your parallel existence. Their goal was not to crush Veelgrind, but to stall Veelgrind here, which was the condition for tactical victory. Only this condition could not be achieved because of Veelgrind's secret parallel existence, so it was that Testarossa was hoping to at least find the means to break this move. Then tell me? Well, you can. Testarossa was still smiling gracefully when she was clearly beaten up and bruised all over her body. This reserved attitude, despite being an enemy, was so admirable to Veelgrind that she was willing to listen to what Testarossa had to say. Testarossa points out that the parallel existence of Veelgrind is by no means invincible and limited. There is a limit to the number of other bodies that can be distributed, and if an other body is knocked down, there is no way to ensure that it will be harmless. To be precise, The physical damage is still zero, but for spiritual beings like us, the consumption of magicules is the real damage. In other words, our attack wasn't useless. Ultima snatched the words from Testarossa and spoke the conclusion. Testarossa nodded with a smile, only her eyes weren't smiling, but instead were fixed on Veilgrind. Veilgrind sighed in her heart, "That's why I hated being a rival to White." Testarossa's accusations hit the bullseye, and in just such a short time, the results were analyzed in the midst of being ravaged by despair. It was an astonishing insight into combat that Veilgrind had to admire. As expected of the primordial White, no, it's Testarossa. That's right. It's commendable. I'd love to take them for myself, thought Veilgrind. It would not be worth it to incur their resentment if they were to be resurrected sooner or later, even killed. Unlike some demon lord, there's really nothing more troublesome than being glued to a primordial. Nor did it matter what mood Veilgrind was in right now, Carrera let loose with a fearless smile. "Cuckoo, Lord Veilgrind is acting too easy, and if Lord Veldora had, he would never have fought us like this." Carrera's words made Veilgrind feel a little irritated. By the way, what Carrera calls a light fight is something where contempt for an opponent's fight equals contempt for an opponent without giving it your all. Veldora was well aware of the dangers of the Demoness trio and would never let his weaknesses be exposed to them in order to preserve his majesty. It turned out to be misunderstood in such a good direction that Carrera's words were not very interesting to Veilgrind. How could that be interesting? But somehow Veilgrind found herself somewhat happy. It turned out that the troubled brother, who needed discipline, was now growing up and she was feeling happy as a sister. This could be a reason that made Veilgrind lose her will to fight. Just in time too. After fighting with Veldora, Veilgrind realized that Veldora's strength was not the same as before, and if she did not use her full strength, Veilgrind would suffer. Judging by the combination, Veilgrind decided at this moment to stop fighting and let go of the Demoness trio, who she could take out in an instant if she took out her true skills. That's right. Indeed, as you say, that child has really grown a great deal. It was delightful, but messed with my inability to drain the water. Therefore, we'll leave the victory or defeat between you to another day. Veilgrind unilaterally proclaimed. What to do? In front of the trio of demonesses who had reacted this way, Veilgrind's other body disappeared, and it happened in a flash, as the three of them could only watch. The forest is burning. After the other body that Veilgrind had put everywhere had been cancelled and returned to a body that shone with a dazzling red light, it transformed into a dragon form that was wrapped with a true red supreme aura, and the trees burned up due to the after-effects of the red light. Veldora also took on the stance of a dragon, his domineering aura calling out to the raging winds that ravaged the earth. The flames wavered and flickered brightly, mirroring Veldora and Veilgrind. The battle between the two, from now, is on. Veilgrind turned into her original form and stared at Veldora. As if to boast of his huge amount of mana, Veldora also showed off his huge body. It's really been a long time since the sister and brother met again in such a way. The encounter with Veilgrind and Emperor Rudra was a long, long time ago. While Veldora was making a fuss all over the place, the Veilgrind of the time was already lurking in the Empire. Not even going out for a walk, not leaving Rudra's side at all. It was because of this feeling of inconvenience that the parallel existence was created, and it was after Veldora was sealed that this skill was acquired. The siblings last met another 2,000 years ago, on a continent to the southwest. Remembering that time, it seemed as though Veilgrind was just playfully displaying some power, and Veldora immediately ran away. But that was all, and the impact was enormous, and the volcanic zone was born out of the energetic impact of the conflict between the dragon races. On that continent, volcanoes continue to be active to this day. Phew. I'm sure he hasn't been weakened by the seal, but he feels even stronger than before. A delightful miscalculation indeed. The growth of her younger brother was indeed pleasing, except that him not listening to Veilgrind was difficult, but it only took strength to make him obey. Even if this method doesn't work, one can still rely on the power of Rudra. As long as Rudra's power is at his disposal, even the dragon race is at his disposal, as evidenced by the fact that even what was I thinking? Veilgrind felt as if something important was coming back to her, and suddenly her mind was full of thoughts. Only now it's more important to capture Veldora, so her mood switches over first. While wanting to avoid relying on Rudra as much as possible, if one needs to rely on Rudra, one must also deprive Veldora of resistance before doing so. Even just a little, to reduce Rudra's burden. Rudra is at his limit, so I have to get him relieved quickly. That's what Veilgrind really meant, so hopefully, as much as possible, they don't rely on Rudra to tame Veldora. For no other reason than that it should have been so. Veilgrind had the odds in her mind. The amount of mana in Veldora was huge, but there was a complete lack of mastery in using it, which is why Veldora didn't look very dangerous to her to begin with. The offense and defense was wonderful, but it was only because of the control of the power that he became able to fight against her, and if the full power is liberated, the control cannot be won, but only the brute force attack. No matter how massive the power is, it's meaningless if it can't be used skillfully. When he becomes a companion, I'll have to teach him a little. While keeping the status quo like this is good enough to be an ace, Veilgrind still intends to work out Veldora again if he wants to fight her. But now, there was still the point of taking advantage of the immaturity of Veldora, who relied on brute force, to decide victory or defeat in one breath. So the board will move in one breath. The long-sustained game is nearing its end. The victory of Veilgrind and Emperor Rudra was close at hand, starting with the capture of Veldora. With Veldora's assistance, it would be a good time to win or lose, to attack in a single breath, to end this long-running game, and in that case, Veldora would be free. With these thoughts, Veilgrind flew towards Veldora. The fight was over the top from the start. The first to take action was Veilgrind. Nor does it prevent a backlash, releasing scorching spit. From the dragon's mouth, a slender, super-hot wire with that intense power attacked Veldora at tens of times the speed of sound like a nightmare. Veldora avoids the attack. Normally, Veldora could make the fire flame attack ineffective with a heat cancellation, but Veldora panicked and dodged the hotline attack. "Oh, I didn't think I'd choose to avoid it. I thought you'd end it with one move like you did before. You've finally seen the essence of your skills. Kwahahaha. Sister's exhalation has given you the effect of accelerated destruction promotion, right? If I get a direct hit, my magic will go into a frenzy, and if I do, my power will be reduced to suppress the frenzy." Veldora replied with a smile. Indeed, Veilgrind's attack had a special attack effect, the ultimate power of accelerated destruction promotion. Through this power to accelerate all phenomena, to increase the destructive effect, and not only that, but also to accelerate the life activity of objects. Even spiritual beings could not resist this power, and even if they were spared from mere destruction, they would definitely be affected by the energy storm. Veldora sensed this intuitively and chose to hold back. And his actions were verified by Veldora's analytical appraisal of the King of Investigation, so that Veldora could confidently answer his sister Veilgrind. "Hey, I'm really glad that I've seen so much, I've really grown." Veldora's correct answer gave Veilgrind a sense of crisis. What is in front of her is not the foolish brother who can only fool around, but an opponent who needs a proper evaluation. To be able to see through one's own power correctly means that Veldora has an ultimate skill. The true dragon seed's attacks are usually powerful enough to reach the ultimate skill, but with the management of the ultimate skills, the danger level will rise by many levels. Veilgrind was overjoyed. Congratulations on the growth of her uninjured brother. But at the same time, she was vigilant. Growing up enough to threaten even her, Veldora has the potential to affect Rudra's plans. It was a bit unexpected that she might even be defeated if he kept on like this, not to mention dominating, but growing up to this point. Thinking about it, Veilgrind, who was faltering a bit, had her turn to pull out the trigger this time. Thinking about things on the battlefield, sister? It's called carelessness. While talking, he let out the thundercloud roar, a move formed by repeatedly releasing storm magic, a must-kill technique for Veldora. The attack hit Veelgrind directly, but the power was scattered without doing much damage. I see. It seems that you have really acquired the ultimate skill. I commend you from the bottom of my heart, Veldora. I'm still so scared that I was deliberately hit by an attack to confirm it. Isn't there nothing we can do about it? Because it's necessary to measure how much of a threat your power really is. So, has my ultimate skill, the King of Investigation, passed? It seems to be the ultimate skill of the analysis system. Although it doesn't increase the power of the attack, it can correct the hit rate. Your control of magic has improved thanks to the power of the King of Investigation, right? Quahahaha. That's right, since I have more magicules than my sister, so there's no need to add more power, as long as I can hit it, it's enough. Hearing Veldora's reply, Veelgrind flashed a smile. Then, the response goes. You've become smarter than I thought. You have something I don't have. That's why I want you to join me as an ace. Eh? I always feel an itch on my back when I'm praised by my sister. Veldora, though still playful, also sensed that Veelgrind's aura had changed. In other words, you must be rewarded for your growth. Let me show you what I can do. Well, then you don't have to. I'll use the full power of the ultimate King of Charity to be your opponent. Veldora's words did not reach Veelgrind. It would be ridiculous to lose a battle because you can't make a move. Even after the intense offense and defense, neither took much damage, so Veelgrind decided to go all out on Veldora. Even doing so, Veldora would not die, Veelgrind was sure. Countless magical arrays appeared around Veelgrind, and that was magic that was unleashed simultaneously through a portion of the other body. Eat this. 11 rays of light, nuclear strike magic, thermal beam cannon attack was used on Veldora. After a moment's judgment, Veldora decided to neutralize it with the magic barrier, because the amount of light was a bit too much to avoid, and there was another reason why he didn't pay attention to it, because he thought it was just pure magic, which caused him to be a bit late in responding. The reason why the magic barrier was opened was because Veldora sensed the danger of the thermal beam cannon. Crunch. Veldora felt a violent pain. Neutralizing Veelgrind's magic failed and was shot. Gee, you've gotten wiser. I'm a little impressed that you've only been hurt like this. I didn't think that even magic had given me the power of an ultimate skill. If I'm completely trapped, even I'm not safe. I was going to end it with this, so you can be proud. Quahahaha, I appreciate your offer, but forgive me if I decline. I'll be proud, and also wait until I have beaten you before being fully proud. As if to strike back, Veldora unleashed the storm magic, mists of darkness and destruction, and the Gourd Dipper also gave it the ultimate skill, successfully blowing Veelgrind away. Quahahaha. How about that, sister? When you've had it, you can just shake hands and make peace. Don't be so proud. I see you've pissed me off. Hey? Wait. Already not wanting to say more, Veelgrind was angry. Veldora's attack had inflicted damage on her, and understanding that fact the instant Veldora's reason flew away. In order to reclaim her dignity as a sister, Veelgrind attacked again. Giving birth to 10 heads and spitting out 11 more scorching spits at Veldora, while performing a spatial shift, occupying a position above Veldora, avoiding the plural spitting Veldora, waiting for him to come back to find that he was already in an unfavorable situation, he looked up at Veelgrind from the bottom, forming a confrontation. Veldora couldn't help but feel admiration for the walk and at the same time cheerful for sensing that Veelgrind was serious. Quahahaha. It's so nice to see that someone who used to be completely incapable of being an opponent is now able to fight like this, thanks to Rimuru cultivation. Veldora still had the pleasure of being unhurried, pleasure is pleasure, and still had the understanding that he was in danger. Veldora pondered how to get out of it. Veelgrind, on the other side, was in a comfortable mood for pushing Veldora to within must-kill distance, and as long as she was within that range, she was certain that Veldora would never be able to escape. "Let it end here, Veldora. Sure enough, you can't escape from my hands." After the Veelgrind proclamation, a scorching rain of vomit came down from the sky. The scorching rain descended without a gap, forming a pillar of inflammation that connected the heavens and the earth. Looking from the periphery, it was like a cage made of fire. In the middle, Veldora anxiously danced back and forth. He was by no means playing around, but was all prejudging the direction of the attack and dodging. It was the same old hyper-speed attack, but Veldora didn't feel like he could keep up yet, trusting his instincts and letting his massive frame fly back and forth. As a result, despite being trapped in a flaming cage, he didn't take a single direct hit. "Qua ha 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 ha. It's nothing as long as you don't hit me." Veldora shouted excitedly the lines he had seen in the sacred texts, manga. In contrast, Veelgrind smacked her tongue in displeasure. Indeed, not even a single shot missed was a miscalculation on the part of Veelgrind, or one has to say a bit of an underestimation of Veldora. "But my attack, it's only now official. The state of absolute dominance remains. Veelgrind is ready to strike with a jab. It is indeed admirable to see through my attacks to such an extent. As a bonus, I'll send a big hug. A scorching embrace." There was a purpose to why Veelgrind had taken the position over Veldora. Below was the earth, for Veldora dodged the scorching spit, and the ground had become a boiling, scorching lava. The flying lava droplets harbored a horrible heat. What would happen if a further attack was attached to this scorching hell? Wait a minute, sis. It was too late to hurry any longer when sensing that intention, and Veldora had been caught up in Veelgrind's spell from the start. Withstanding Veelgrind's excessive attacks caused the ground to boil and even become gas, and the ultra-high temperatures caused the gasified lava to surround Veldora. Those were tiny droplets of Veelgrind's power, the scorching red lava, coming from the bottom up like rain. The true red cage that captured Veldora was completed at this moment. The essence of Veelgrind's ultimate power, the King of Charity, is charity, that is, support and enhancement is its true essence, and for Veelgrind, whose essence is acceleration, there is no higher power than the multiplying effect this brings. What if the power of Veelgrind was surrounded by the true red cage like this? The amount of movement of the object is greatly increased, and the heat is also greatly increased, and it is only natural that the scorching red lava will turn into gas when the temperature reaches 2000 degrees or even tens of thousands of degrees. Thus was generated the scorching prison, but its true essence was more than that. Veelgrind's support effect can be increased indefinitely regardless of the upper limit, i.e., if it is only increased appropriately, support enhancement can be obtained, and if it is given an excessive increase, it becomes a burden. The negative effect caused will promote the other party's physical exertion, and the effect can even be increased to the point where the other party is burned out by the heat generated by her body. The ultimate skill, the King of Charity, the power to operate all energies freely. As if to embrace Veldora, red rain gently made a wrapping, and those trapped by the scorching embrace could only give Veelgrind the right to live or die. Even if the object is a dragon species, the result is the same. There is no place to escape as long as one is captured by a cage. Convinced of her victory, Veelgrind prepared to make a final exhortation to Veldora, but her movements came to an abrupt halt. The scent of Veldora that should have been captured disappeared. What's going on? Veelgrind was in a rare state of anxiety. At this point, she sensed the scent behind her and hurriedly turned around in a panic. "Qua ha 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 ha. Didn't I just say that? It's nothing as long as it doesn't hit." Trumpeting the victory was the human-turned Veldora. His high, loud laughter was extraordinarily piercing to Veelgrind's ears. It was in this moment that Veelgrind really saw Veldora as a threat. On the other hand, Veldora was not so relaxed when he laughed and irritated the other. After calming down and thinking about it, Veldora, who was angry because his clothes were burned, felt that there was still a big difference in strength between him and his sister, and knew that the chances of winning a serious battle were slim, so he kept up his guard from the start. That's the learned Hinata way of fighting. While taking care not to get mortally wounded, launch an attack aimed at your opponent's break, and then, when you find that the attack can work, attack continuously. In fighting Hinata, one's own habits seem to be seen through by the other. He overwhelms Hinata with a gap in strength while fighting on the 100th floor of the underground, but is hit hard when she travels back in time to take on the form of Chronoa the hero. It's no wonder that she was so familiar with my movement habits, even though it was obviously my first fight with her. It was a foul, Veldora thought so, but even if he said it out loud, he would only be called a sore loser by his opponent, and he felt irritated at the look of smugness on Hinata's face, but a defeat is a defeat. Veldora honestly introspects and then begins to learn the art of fighting against an opponent who is stronger than himself. Not only that, but what was learned was cunning in mock battles with demons. When you can't beat an opponent by strength, as long as the opponent is more fatigued than yourself, it is a victory. This is the battle between spiritual beings. Veldora learned this. This is a perspective that has not been attempted before. By observing Rimuru's life, an interest in all sorts of things emerged. The originally inquisitive Veldora's horizons were opened up, and he learned to think in ways that were completely absent in the past, which seemed to have a benign effect on Veldora and played a role in Veldora's growth. The fruits of learning played a role in this battle with Vielgrind, the so-called no-defeat fighting style that Veldora tried to practice. And that's what prompted Vielgrind to launch the Scorching Embrace. True Red Cage is a must-kill skill at first sight. Having been captured, Vielgrind was certain of victory. Veldora was desperate enough to avoid the Scorching Spit alone, not seeing that it was a trap, but the danger foreknowledge of the King of Investigation was unleashed. In order not to be careless on any occasion and to be on the alert to keep on going, it was with this blessing that Veldora was saved from the crisis. Never in the past had a warning of maximums made Veldora feel that something was not quite right. To keep running like this would be to lose, to feel a wicked chill, to have him convinced. However, even in the panic of trying to cope with the situation, they do not know what is going to happen. Just then, the scorching red lava erupted, and upon seeing this, Veldora saw through Vielgrind's thoughts. But at this stage, it's still hard to deal with these things, and at first glance, you can't blow them away with the mists of destruction. This area was already under the influence of Vielgrind's space domination, and it was impossible to escape with space transfer. Crap. Just as Veldora was thinking this, the moment of the King of Investigation came to an optimal understanding. As long as the scorching red lava was boarding Vielgrind's mind, it would be dangerous to touch it, and it would not be easy to escape from the foggy attack, but even if the huge body could not, it was possible to use a human stance. Despite having to shed defenses, after all, the future was seen escaping through the cracks. Even so, the success rate of escape is only half. If the timing is right, it's a success. If it fails, there will be no next time. While Veldora was dazed, there came the apocalypse that would absolutely succeed. He didn't realize that the King of Investigation's Operation Probability had been activated. The so-called probabilistic operation is the power to manipulate a phenomenon in a direction that is favorable to oneself, according to one's own situation, against an object that is equal to or weaker than oneself. This point surprised Veldora. In other words, if the success rate is doubled, in this case, half of the success rate can be escaped, then doubling the success rate is a sure thing. Is it such a coincidence? Half believing, Veldora warily transformed into a human stance in an attempt to escape the cage, not expecting to succeed all at once. And just like that, Veldora was out of the crisis. Vielgrind threw away all of her composure so far and stared closely at Veldora, who was laughing loudly. The younger brother in need of discipline, who had always been thought of as inferior to her, that Veldora, had somehow grown to this extent. The idea of letting brute force run amok is a big misunderstanding. Veldora is brilliantly alive with the ability to match Veilgrin's ultimate skills, and surprisingly, escapes from an absolutely impossible situation to reverse. There is also talk of teaching Veldora that there should be a measure of pride and conceit. It has to be admitted. Veldora was now on the same level as herself. Veilgrind endorsed Veldora and confronted him as an enemy above equal. If one calmly analyzed the situation, one could actually see that Veilgrind was at a disadvantage because her Aoyi had just been broken. The little gimmick will be dodged and it will be hard to give him mortal wounds. That being the case, there is only the option of consuming Veldora and then relying on Rudra to unleash his kingship. Thinking about it, Veilgrind changed her tactics and became more deliberate in her actions. "Oh, yeah. Looks like I've got your approval." As if sensing Veilgrind's thoughts, Veldora turned into a dragon with a playful gesture. It would have been quite irritating, but somehow Veilgrind was happy. Come to think of it, I don't think I've ever played with this kid. And to think of such things. Veilgrind couldn't help but smile and reply. "Well, yeah, I approve of you, you've been able to hold your own. So, Veldora, if it is thoughtful to disobey me, there will be no more forgiveness." Veilgrind acted as if she was going to say it to herself, so declared too. Looking at the sister whose atmosphere had changed, Veldora also sensed a sense of crisis, but couldn't nod his head here. "Quahahaha. Then I'll lay down my life. I'm finally getting used to using the ultimate skill that I haven't used much for a long time." Despite being forced into a bitter fight as Veilgrind's opponent, it was enough to make a confrontation as long as that force was present, so Veldora felt it was his turn to strike this time. Although he can't use parallel existence like Veilgrind, Veldora also hides one of the only first sight must-kill skills. This skill was only told to Rimuru, and was called the Harvest Storm Attack, and the skill was created after consulting with him. Even that Rimuru was in admiration, so there was no way it wouldn't work on Sister. Veldora was full of confidence. As far as Veldora knew, there was no one in the world more cunning than Rimuru. "I've been thinking to myself that I'm lucky Rimuru is a companion. This skill is certified by the authority of Rimuru." Now, Veldora unceremoniously freed the Harvest Storm Attack. A thundercloud roar was released from Veldora's mouth, its tyranny interfering with space and turning into an unseen light flying haphazardly. Veilgrind, of course, would only respond to extremely dangerous attacks. Something like interfering wave had no effect at all and was never put out of sight in the first place, but that's the catch. Meaningless fluctuations can be unimaginably destructive when they are in poor plural, just as acoustic weapons, which alone pose little threat, are too late to detect. Veilgrind was no exception, looking to miss the Harvest Storm Attack. It was only when the whole body was pervaded by pain that one understood that one had fallen into the Veldora's spell. "Ew. I can't believe I'm feeling pain. Veldora, what did you just do?" "Quahahaha. It's my self-created Harvest Storm Attack, which I'm very confident in," Veldora said triumphantly. Getting the results as expected and getting overjoyed. Although he knew it hadn't caused any fatal injuries, it had never been possible to get such an advantage over his sister, so Veldora couldn't help but want to show off. "But you're a real dumbass. That's why you're not good enough." Veldora felt a fierce pain that he had never felt before. The one trumpeting the victory was Veilgrind. The moment Veilgrind recognized Veldora, the duel was abandoned, and the winning direction was no longer meaningful, but the full force of the fight was driving the success, so worked hard to keep Veldora unnoticed, quietly approaching the Emperor's flagship flying airship. On board the flagship was Lieutenant Kondo, who was fully prepared. Kondo unleashed the strongest aura towards Veldora, following Veldora's chanting words. Instructions. And then. That one blow, even a god could be destroyed. Kondo can only fire one bullet a day, called the kamikaze bullet, which is the strongest bullet born from the power of the King of Execution, a large Southern-style automatic pistol that has been sublimated to mythical levels. The domination spell bomb was completely incomparable to this bullet, and as far as Kondo knew, there were no people who ate this move and remained unscathed. Even Veilgrin's other body could be buried, and even Veldora could not remain unharmed. All as expected by Veilgrin's plan. The initial speed is extremely close to the speed of light, and it can penetrate all kinds of defense barriers to reach the target. Veldora, who had been careless, had no strength left to resist the god-extinguishing bomb. Being hit by such a projectile, even his own existence was threatened. Veldora was in chaos. "Sister, you actually borrowed a third person's hand." Veldora was a bit forgetful because he felt he could win over his sister, so he got caught in the breach and fell for his sister's plan. However, it's shocking that the self-respecting and arrogant sister should give up the duel. While understanding that it was a condition to prioritize victory, it always felt too unlike sister. As important as this is, the more important issue right now is the state of himself. Oops. A strong alarm sounded inside Veldora's head, and being a spiritual being, Veldora was abnormal enough to be able to feel the pain alone. As the strongest true dragon race is in a life crisis, it's only natural that Veldora would be anxious in the face of this incredible fact. If it had been a head-on strike, it might have been possible to resist even if he couldn't avoid it, but now as he was completely caught off guard, Veldora had no solution. Ouch, that's a headache. This time it's better to admit defeat honestly and wait for the next time we meet to get revenge. Let's get in touch with Rimuru first. All caught up in this state, Veldora still retained some submissiveness. The reason why is because there is a soul corridor between him and Rimuru, which can be revived later. As long as Rimuru was alive, Veldora was indestructible, so there was absolutely no need to panic. It should have been so, but instead things started going in the worst possible direction. The king's power unleashed. It wasn't noticed because it was only watching Kondo, and there was actually a well-dressed man on board the airship. Masayuki? No. MHM? Wait, give me a minute. What's this? Oops, this really sucks. By the time he found out, it was too late. The man, Emperor Rudra, was about to seize the spiritual will of Veldora. With all the bruises and wounds from being hit by the exterminating bullet, it was really over for Veldora. But there was one thing that Veldora couldn't stand either way. It doesn't matter if it's just me, but if it goes on like this, my friend Rimuru will also be affected, and only that will not be allowed. Rudra's domination is far more powerful than imagined, and if it continues to be left unchecked, it will obviously affect Rimuru through the soul corridor. This will never be allowed, Veldora thought to himself. Thus, the soul corridor was cut off on his own accord. This is good. After that it's up to you, Rimuru. With those last words, Veldora's consciousness plunged into darkness. Chapter 2. The Power of Liberation. It's probably the first time I've lost my sanity in anger. When Xion and the others were killed, regret and anger were woven into my heart, and thoughts of self-blame flooded my head. But because of the sight of hope, the storm in the heart regained its calm. Because of this, I actually managed the rather deft act of being angry while remaining calm. This time is different. This pain of having my soul torn apart, and the possibility of losing Veldora, made me completely lose my sanity. The odds? That kind of stuff doesn't matter at all. I want to crush the enemy. That's all. Lord Rimuru, what's next? It looks like we've been isolated into a special space. Can we pry it open by force? Without Benimaru's reminder, I sensed that we were locked up. Since the enemy's objective is to capture Veldora, of course some means will be used to keep us out of the way. It's foolish of us to fall headlong into a trap without even realizing it. Sorry. I'm really sorry. Unbelievably, even the King of Wisdom is in chaos. The feeling is the inability to believe that you are being played by others and has become less calm than usual. It's obviously a skill, but it's become so human it makes one laugh, but I don't have the mental energy to take it in stride these days. Right now, my feelings are only one color of anger. Give thanks and you won't have to be, give me focus on finding a way to escape. As a result, the King of Wisdom replied to me that he had mastered the coordinates perfectly and that the analysis and identification of this space would soon be over. The King of Wisdom is very capable. No problem. We'll get out of here and target the head of the enemy. Listen up, Veldora has fallen into the hands of Rudra. So when you get there with space shift, you'll have to fight them immediately, and you'll have to prepare yourselves. I said in a forced rage. I don't want to anger my companions. I want to take it all out on the enemy. After everyone nodded together, I added another order. Without Veldora to provide the magic, Ramirez won't be able to mess around as much as before. So I'm going to put the metropolis that's been tucked away in the labyrinth back on the ground, and I'm going to divide up the war effort to defend the metropolis. It's been a matter of time. The weight of Ramirez's current burden was unimaginable, so it was imperative to get over it quickly. Understood? What about Lord Rimuru? I'll take back Veldora. This takes precedence over anything else. It's basically like saying, I'll leave the rest to you, and I don't have to say that everyone is aware of that. Wait. You guys, are you forgetting the most important thing? How are we going to get out of here after all? I thought Laplace had gotten honest, only for him to suddenly complain again. That kind of thing, it's easy. It's just a straight shoot over. That's too messy. This is the rumored Fortress of Dreams, and it's located in another dimension, so it's impossible to escape so easily. It is said to be a place dedicated to isolating troublesome opponents. So I say. Laplace is kinda erudite, but I'm not interested in that right now. Notice. It is ready to be done. Yes. Well, let's go. Laplace, I'll get you out of here too, and after that it's all you. Huh? So instead of saying. Laplace seemed to have something else to say, but none of it mattered to me now. I'll rescue Veldora as soon as possible and eliminate the enemy. In a state of rage, I launched the space shift. We came to the place that was scheduled. This kind of transference without hesitation is so unthinkable that it's impossible to imagine that I would do it instead of doing it normally. But none of that matters now. In front of my eyes were 2 true dragon races and a flying airship behind them. The enemy is at hand. All that's left is to make a fuss. But the King of Wisdom gives annoying warnings of danger. I think it's because I've mastered the enemy's battle strength that I give advice, but now I think it's just in the way. Since we've decided to do it, of course we have to do it to the end, but if we panic now, we can't do it. Do something. Silence the King of Wisdom with commands. Understood. Best action, recommending demon calling. Well, isn't that doing it pretty well? If you don't have enough combat power, just increase your combat power, is that what you mean? By the way, I've pushed back the evolution of the Demoness trio, so let's just get it done while it lasts. I'll make the most of it right here. And then beat the enemy to a pulp. Sensing our presence, Veilgrin's eyes widened slightly from surprise. What's that Fortress of Dreams thing? She really seemed to think that relying on that thing sealed my move. That kind of thing, as long as there is the King of Wisdom calculations, it is not even a problem. I was connected to my companions by a soul corridor. Just follow this link and finding the location coordinates is a breeze. Even if I was made to go to another dimension, it was still possible to come back through space transfer. Benimaru and the others have gone on alert to protect me and the capital city of Rimuru, which is far behind. So I can feel comfortable doing what I want to do. Testarossa, Ultima, Carrera. Can you still move? Lord Rimuru. That's natural. It doesn't matter, there's no problem. If my lord asked me that, how could I not answer? The 3 gave 3 answers, and all of them seemed to be fine with their injuries. It's a relief for the time being. Then I don't need to worry about it. As a move to liberate Veldora, take the King of Wisdom offer and summon a demon. However, Someone came in the way. Was it already judged that I was a threat? Kondo immediately took action. Although I was at a distance that a pistol round could not reach, he did not care to fire directly at me with the gun raised. The velocity of the shot reached tens of times the speed of sound. I thoroughly grasped the details of this attack with the assistance of a million times faster thinking. My mind silently chanted, "Quickly give me defense." The King of Wisdom gave the response of, "Understood." Without question. Then the absolute defense of the King of Covenant invalidated its success without any problem, which was nothing compared to the blow to Veldora. Notice. Sensing the effect of barrier busting, invalidation successful. Continuing, capturing attacks that can disrupt mental and magical circuits, nullifying success. The result of the analysis and identification of this attack was determined to be the ultimate skill King of Execution. From now on, starting implementation of the relevant countermeasures, I didn't listen to any of these analyses of the King of Wisdom. I glanced at Kondo and Damrada and the rest, judging that these people could be dealt with later. The attack that Kondo had just made against Veldora was a threat, but since he hadn't used it again, there should be some reason. Is it something you don't want to use, or can't use? The speed of that attack was close to the speed of light, and there was no way to dodge it once it got close. However, if you pull away, you'll be able to deal with it as long as you're not careless. The attack didn't work. Kondo didn't leave the ship without meaning to, presumably to guard Rudra, then I wouldn't have a problem even ignoring this guy. Then, I uttered the words. "Come out, demons." The demon from above summoned the gate of creation. A huge magical array appeared in the sky, and a door full of ominous aura emerged from it. This thing can transcend time and space and call the demons who have a connection with me to it. The first to appear in response to my call was the Demoness Trio. Then, 2 demon mages and 4 superior demon generals also appeared behind them, along with the 600 demons who were their dependents. In other words, the bulk of the Black Legion's battle force was already assembled here. Kufufufu. Lord Raimuru, I have sent my men to protect the city. As expected of Diablo. Even without saying anything, he could understand what I wanted. Except for Venom, who followed Masayuki's side as an escort, all the others who could move freely arrived. Benimaru also took back the command originally given to Moss and began issuing orders to the entire army. Even if I don't say anything, the support posture is all right. That being the case, hurry up and get the ceremony over with before someone comes out of the way. After falling to the ground, the demons knelt before me. At the top of the list were the Demoness Trio, and I wonder if they didn't feel that they hadn't fulfilled my orders and had suddenly become very honest. "I'm so sorry." The demons are all bowing their heads to me in gratitude. No, there's nothing for everyone to apologize for. The purpose of stalling Veilgrind had been sort of accomplished. I'm also responsible for failing to see through the parallel existence trick this time. That kind of stuff can never be predicted if it's not known in advance. If one fears the fantastic power that might exist, then one cannot formulate any combat strategy, and this time there really is nothing one can do. Besides, the Testarossa Trio's battle gave me quite a bit of reference, so it was definitely not meaningless. As much as it was tempting to pass on the gratitude, I'll let them know later. I gave stern orders to the demons. Listen well, I will now grant you power. However, you are not allowed to fall asleep because of this. All of you, like Diablo, hold back on the spot and evolve. I also find my request unreasonable. I originally practiced the doctrine of not imposing on others what I could not do myself. It was clear that I had fallen into evolutionary sleep due to the influence of the evolutionary demon lord, but I ordered the demons under my command to endure the situation. In fact, I think it's too much to ask, but this is not the time for such grandstanding. If anyone can't keep up with me, they'll just have to toss it first. Was it sensing these intentions of mine that the trio of demonesses wore fearless smiles as they waited for my next words? Can you do it? That's natural. Of course. As the Lord wishes. There was confidence in the expressions of all three female demons. I gave them my souls without hesitation. I don't even have to think about what to do if it fails. If these three get out of control and storm off as a feint to exploit it, that's fine. My priorities will not waver. It is for this reason that I have gifted my next words to the demons who began their evolution. You can make all the noise you want, no matter what kind of death or destruction you spread, but you will not be allowed to die, nor will you be allowed to run and get in my way. While I liberate Veldora, you will hold the enemy at bay with your own shields. While saying no death, the demons were ordered to lay down their lives. So capricious, that's me. The sister of Lord Veldora, what are you going to do about her? Diablo asked me so. That kind of thing was decided a long time ago. No problem. If you dare to get in her way, you'll be my enemy. You don't have to worry about swallowing her. Hearing this, Diablo smiled as if he were happy. Not only Diablo, but others as well. Fearlessly smiling Benimaru. Sue's shadow of a sneer was revealed. With a smile on her face, Xion began to do preparatory exercises. Everyone is my reliable companion. I'll take care of the cleaning up. I nodded. Yeah. So, go ahead and kill the enemy. As you wish. That's all right. That way, there were no worries and I could concentrate on the Veldora problem. So, I turned my attention to Veldora. While I was making preparations, Veelgrind also seemed ready to meet him, and she received the magicules transferred by Veldora, which appeared to have returned in full. That kind of resilience is the real value of Veldora. Because he boasts a huge amount of mana, the Storm Dragon can help others recover in a very short time. That one, Veldora, is now showing hostility towards me. There was no doubt that he had become a puppet of Emperor Rudra. Veelgrind also seems to have a point, and it seems that I must be the opponent of two true dragon races at the same time. It's hard, but it's all up to me. It was also said to Diablo a moment ago that if Veelgrind became an enemy, it would be to exclude her. Wait for me, Veldora. I'm going to free you. After muttering so much, I spread my wings and flew into the sky. After Raimaru flew away, the people left behind quickly began to move. Benimaru grasped the situation of the battlefield and gave the appropriate instructions. At the same time, they gave orders to the subordinates who remained in the city through the communication network to quickly enter the emergency situation. Sue sent his own clone around to gather information. During all this, Diablo's excitement was at its peak. Kufa-fu-fa-fu. You see that, guys? Lord Raimaru, it's finally time to show his true strength. To such a Diablo, Xion was speechless in response. Fool. No matter what kind of Lord Raimaru, it is wonderful. To get excited and wait for the excitement to pass, what must be done now is to go and concentrate on crushing the enemy. Although it contains some strange arguments, Xion's words are spot on. It wasn't that they couldn't understand the consternation that would come with seeing Raimaru storm out in anger for the first time, but now was not the time to care about that. Just like Benimaru and the rest, it's the subordinates who clean up the miscellaneous soldiers. Moreover, Raimaru had issued an edict. To the subordinates that was the gospel. For the demons who had been summoned, it was even more of a supreme joy, their expressions filled with joy, their strength soaring because now was the time for them to come to their aid. Just how long the demons had waited with great anticipation for this summoning was evident by the attitude. As if to prove how strong Raimaru's anger was, the terrifying power of destruction was about to be unleashed to its fullest. The order was very simple. Kill them all. The demons who received this order ignited a sense of mission. All things are as our Lord wills. The demons, who no longer had anything to fear, rushed towards the battlefield together in order to be of use. However, wait a minute. That one comment from Diablo brought the whole crew to a halt in action. The demons simultaneously focused their eyes on Diablo. Diablo held up a hand, letting the demons relax first. Kufa-fu-fa-fu. Do you all understand? Not a single one of you is allowed to die, it was Lord Raimuru's holy decree. That is to say, if any of you die, you are committing a great sin that even we, the subordinates, cannot repay by surrendering our heads. Hearing Diablo declare so unmistakably, the demons fell silent. Diablo's smile is more about planting fear in the creature than intimacy. And Diablo's words are still very true without any room for rebuttal. The demons waited quietly for his next words. The opening is the Benimaru. Diablo is right. Maybe you are all immortal, but that kind of sophistry doesn't work. That kind of thing is no excuse for Lord Raimuru. The fact that after a while they can come back to life is no reason to be able to die. With these words, Benimaru corrected the demons' misunderstanding. All the demons realized their mistakes and became honest. Seeing all this, Diablo opened his mouth. For this reason it is necessary to assign the duties of each one beforehand. Sir Benimaru, could you please make the assignment? What are you going to do with yourself? With these words, Benimaru asked Diablo if he would also listen to his own assignments. Please leave me out. I'll take care of the other side if there's a mouse I care about. Hearing that answer, Benimaru just shrugged. It must have turned out that way anyway, he'd felt that way from the start. So it is. Forget it, do what you like. It's better to touch less of anything with Diablo involved, which has become the norm for Benimaru. After all, Diablo was a direct subordinate of Raimaru, and Benimaru had no license to command or order them. This time, it was Diablo who took the initiative to ask for help so that Benimaru could give orders to the demons. Then, Diablo, you are free to act. Moss, as before, gather intelligence from the battlefield and pass it back. We'll share it with the entire battlefield, according to Lord Raimuru's wishes. Diablo nodded. Moss also nodded without question. In fact, he had already scattered the clones, and at this moment was also conveying the information to Raimuru and Benimaru through thought communication. I won't let you leave me alone. Xion made such a statement in a condescending manner. Xion could actually use spatial shift, but she could only shift within the visual range after all, because she was very bad at calculating coordinates. Benimaru revealed a dark smile that took her for nothing, while nodding his head hard. Of course, you have to use your war power as well. The huge aura on the airship, 8 in addition to Emperor Rudra, was estimated to be bad to deal with, but at least not as outrageous as Lord Raimuru's chosen opponent. Even if Diablo isn't here, we should be able to figure something out. The battlefield side is also troublesome. More than 30,000 enemy reinforcements have gone to war in succession. The advice was from Sue. Of course, Benimaru had gotten a handle on this side as well. I know. Because of this, it was a race against time. I have ordered Gable to stall as long as he can, and we must bring the Emperor under our control before there are sacrifices. Hearing Benimaru boldly and fearlessly say so, Sue and Xion also nodded in response. Since Raimuru was so hopeful, Benimaru didn't object. He would go to great lengths to develop what he considered the best course of action in order to fulfill Raimuru's wishes, thoroughly execute stalling tactics on the battlefield, and then take out the most troublesome airships. In this way, it would in turn prevent the city from being attacked, or so Benimaru judged. By the way, Benimaru was referring to the true nature of the 8 huge auras, the other bodies that Veilgrind had left behind as insurance, and the single digits that had gathered on the airship. The latter included Lieutenant Kondo and Damrata, the 4 horsemen who guarded the Emperor, and the last one was Malcolm. Because no one was still hiding their aura now, Benimaru's unique skill Generalissimo was able to detect them. Just then, a piece of good news reached Benimaru. Response from Geld. Just now, it seems he has completed his evolutionary awakening. Geld, the Barrier Lord, has awakened, and with it, his men are beginning to awaken. Soon, they'll be joining in on the urban defense operation. That's great. Since Lord Geld is also involved in the defense, then it feels like it will be possible to remove the demon knights in the upper echelon from the urban defense operation. Are those guys coming under my command too? They can't move systematically if Venom doesn't move. Let them decide what to do, depending on the situation. Got it. Thus, after a brief consultation, the subordinates decided on their respective duties. All that was left was to start acting with the conviction of certain victory, but there was one more thing Benimaru needed to confirm. So, you guys can still fight, right? Benimaru asked so to Testarossa and the girls. There was nothing polite about the tone. Can you be expected to function as warriors? Benimaru asked with a clear meaning. Kufufafu. There's no need to ask. There's no need for any of my men to answer no at a time like this. Diablo turned his gaze to the demoness trio. With no pressure from Diablo, the three also stood up. Stupid question. Diablo can do it, so how could I not?
It's a little difficult, but we're okay with it.
Because we love to fight. Even if it is in response to my lord's expectations, I must not lose my temper again. Now is not the time to rest. To come in handy for Lord Rimuru, their wills are completely united. The same is true of their dependents in this case. The demons quickly completed their evolution. While feeling the greatest joy, waited for the long-awaited order. It was at this point that Testarossa, Ultima, and Carrera evolved into the true demon lords, as did Diablo. Becoming a corner of the strongest lineup in the world, a demon lord that is unquestionable even in the eyes of the demon public. In this way, all the members of the original 7 primordials were freed from all restrictions and became one being who had reached the same realm. Venom, who was a subordinate of Diablo, also became a demon lord, and those of Testarossa's men were also blessed with the name Evolution. Although Moss and Veyron were still demon nobles, their amount of magic element had increased to the point that they could rival an awakened demon lord. The other 4 demons, Ajira, Esprit, Zonda, and Sion, have also evolved into demon nobles who are above the demon lord race. Among all sorts of demons, they have literally evolved into supreme beings. However, even at the same level, there is still a clear gap of strength between individuals, with differences in knighthoods defining their class gap. Moss became an archduke who could match the king. Veyron is duke rank. Ajira is a marquis. Esprit is earl class. Sion and Zonda are viscounts. On a digression, Venom was also recognized for the baron rank. Among the remaining demons, there were born several superior demons who could become commanders, and these demons, whose rank was equivalent to a knighthood, would then work for a long time to achieve the purpose of being officially knighted. The other demons, which were close to 600 in number, had all turned into superior demon knights whose strength could rival that of the superior demons. All to be useful for Rimuru, to become stronger. The demons complete the evolution. The entire demon crew showed a will to go to war. Benimaru nodded with satisfaction. All right. I look forward to your performance. Just like that, the trio of demonesses and their inner circle joined the battle against the flying airship with such urgency that Benimaru actually intended to do so initially, so there was no hesitation in giving the instructions. So, Miss Testarossa,
I'd like to give you the job of sweeping up the trash, is that okay?
Well, no problem. It's very simple. Wait, we want to do this too. It's easy for us to do, too. Benimaru gave the order to Testarossa, but Ultima stepped in cross-leggedly. However, Benimaru wasn't angry about it. It doesn't really matter who does it, but the spaceship has to stay. It will be a battlefield for us and Emperor Rudra. Kufufafu. Ultima, it was I who asked Lord Benimaru to assign the duties. If you disagree with this, you are disobeying me. You think this through before you speak. Lucky for Ultima, Diablo is in the best mood right now. Normally, Ultima would have been sanctioned just for making the statement she just made. It was only because Diablo was in a good mood that he merely scolded her. Che, that's a shame. But it's true, this job is not for us. Let's obey Mr. Benimaru's instructions. Ultima also found herself behaving badly as soon as she opened her mouth. It made Ultima feel a little relieved to be able to carry the topic through like this and pretend to agree that she was no longer stubborn. Sometimes Ultima can fail by being too naive, but the unexpected also knows how to act by watching the atmosphere. It's on. With this announcement, Benimaru communicated the content of their duties to the remaining members. First, Benimaru gave the job of eliminating the knights on the Emperor's flagship to Testarossa. He then went on to list the names of the members who participated in the raid. 4 have been identified: Shion, Sue, Ultima, and Carrera. Of course, Benimaru himself was scheduled to participate in the raid. Emperor Rudra, for the most part, will not make a move. Even if he did take action, it would simply be a matter of crushing it, so the real enemy we need to defeat is Lord Veilgrin's other body on the airship, and the remaining 7 single digits. That being the case, this side doesn't have the battle strength to deal with 1 person each. I'll take care of the 2 enemies. Otherwise, it wouldn't hurt for me to deal with 3 enemies alone. Benimaru stopped Shion from continuing with these grand words. Wait, Shion. And while you're right, it's not good to take away these guys' jobs. What Benimaru's eyes were pointing to were Veyron and the others, who were waiting with anticipation for instructions. Listen, you must not be careless. Leaving only the necessary numbers, we're going to attack with maximum combat power. And of course, Her Excellency Testarossa, who cleaned up the trash, must join in. I can't